Yep.
Hey, Liz, look how good Maria looks.
I was just going to say that's a wonderful picture of her.
Look at
Great.
yesterday.
Yep.
Hey, Liz, look how. It's very professional.
You know, that was taken, it was actually taken at my hair salon.
Oh, was it really? Yeah.
After I got my hair done, she's like, let me grab a picture of it. So I'm wearing like the hair smock still.
That's cool. Yeah. Looks good.
I like red ends.
Let's see.
Are you at home, John?
Yes, ma'am.
Ah.
Just made it.
7 participants.
Okay.
Is Fred on audio and video, Maria?
I'm going to ask him to unmute. He-
Hey, Liz,
Yes.
let's remember, this is not a planning and zoning commission meeting.
Right.
This is a design review committee.
Right.
So, whatever, it looks like there's a bunch of people lining up here. I just want to make it clear that their opportunity is going to be with the Planning and Zoning Commission. This is simply a design review committee.
Okay.
So we're going to keep the commentary and the questions. This is all about design. It's not about, anything else. I understand that, the neighborhood is a little bit up in arms with this, but their time is going to be with the Planning and Zoning Commission, not with ACA. We're focused on design.
Okay.
So let's.
Scale and mass and all of that kind of thing.
I'm saying that for you and for all the people in attendance.
Right. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We do have the first person for the application. I'm just going to get them moved over while we're waiting.
Okay.
We're just waiting for Matt.
Is John and Ron on?
Yes.
Yes.
What's up?
Okay.
Yes.
Hi.
Can you see me? No?
No. Oh, there you are. Hello.
Did you go to Dave Anderson's invite?
John disappeared.
No, look for Dave Anderson. He sent you an invite. Yep.
Whose desk is that?
Okay.
Who is this?
John, there's no one in that picture.
There it is.
Talking to somebody. Yeah.
John, that was John Matthews. He's having a problem zooming into this meeting. He's looking at the wrong invite.
Oh, okay.
Just see if I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
You're all set, Dick. Wait, we're just still getting started.
Okay, thank you.
Was that Mr. Pryor?
Yes.
Okay. And we're waiting for Matt, is that correct?
Yes, Matt said he was attending and John.
I think we'll just give it another minute and then we'll start because we do have 3 applications on the agenda. Matt's not here yet, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct, Liz. I think you're right. You can get started because Mac's going to be most important on the last application anyway, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Tuesday, February the 8th, 2022 meeting of ACCA Advisory Committee on Community Appearance. I'd like to call the meeting to order with the first application, which is on 154 Samson Rock. It's Dick Pryor is presenting from Sign of Our Times. It's an application for a new permanent sign. Dick, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
Could you make your presentation, please? And introduce yourself for the record because we're recording it.
My name is Dick Pryor, Signs of Our Time, Clinton, Connecticut. We're doing a sign for Villa Spa, Samson Rock. And it's a halo lit sign. It's backlit. It's all LED instead of being the old-fashioned way with neon. And
Mr. Pryor, excuse me, just for a second. I'm having a difficult time hearing you. I can hear everyone else very clearly, so I don't know. It might be on your end. If you could turn up your voice.
okay, I'm
Thank you.
not on my computer, so
Okay.
it's a LED lit sign. It's not neon. It's backlit. It's called halo. Instead of the letters lighting up, it shines against the wall.
Great, so I have a daytime sign and a nighttime sign I can share.
The night.
Okay,
yes.
you have them in color, Maria?
I do.
Okay.
Is there anything else you'd like to know?
Yeah, we'd like to see the colors and the things that Maria is putting up.
Okay.
Thank you. So it's a white, they're white letters, is that correct?
Yes.
And they sit proud of the surface of the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Yes.
thing is behind, okay?
Now,
And
when it lights up, the lighting, as you see it, it goes against the wall. The light goes against the wall. Like if you've been to Clinton Crossings,
Right.
all those are halo lit.
So it's really an outline lighting in a way.
Right.
And they know about the restrictions on keeping lit signs in the,
Absolutely. Yes.
right, okay.
The store the liquor store right next door is the opposite. It shines out toward the parking lot.
Okay, you don't have a photograph of that by any chance, do you?
No.
I can Google one up.
Yeah. Just for a frame of reference, it's a good idea. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you find it okay, Maria?
Somewhat. Hold on. Let's see here.
I wouldn't spend a lot of time looking for it. It's really,
Okay,
It doesn't really matter.
no,
No.
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
No.
well,
It is what it is.
we can't really see it because of the tree. Okay,
Mhm.
all right. If it was easy to get, I think it would have been worthwhile. Anybody have any comments about the sign? Ron, what do you think?
I'll make a motion to accept the design.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I think it's actually quite attractive. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda, thank you very much, Mr. Pryor. The next item on the agenda is 1362 Boston Post Road. From the town of Madison, a site plan modification for Salt Meadow Park tree landscape plan. I'm not sure who's presenting. Someone here from the town of Madison to present the plan for Salt Meadow Park?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. I'm Austin Hall, I'm the Director of Beach Recreation and Senior Services.
Thank you.
So a couple months ago, we came to you for the pavilion at Salt Meadow, and now we would like to come to you for a tree planting scheme. Years ago, I guess in 2013, there was a landscaping plan that was approved and was never done. So I've been the director here since July. We've partnered with Mad for Trees, and Bob Cook is here representing that group. Mad for Trees is a group in town that is planning on planting 200 trees for the 200th anniversary of Madison, which is coming up. So we thought it was a great partnership to join forces with them to add trees to Salt Meadow Park. So I can share my screen if you'd like.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so okay, so this, what you're looking at here is the old legacy planting plan. So right in the middle of the drawing is the islands in the parking area. So to your left are the ball fields. To your right, in the far right corner, bottom right-hand corner is where the pavilion is now. Up in the top right-hand corner is the entrance, and you could see Route 1 along the top right-hand corner as well. So we're focusing on the parking area on the islands right in the middle of the map. So you'll see down at the bottom of the page the types of trees that were approved in the original plan. And then we'll move on to, this is our new proposed planting drawing that Mr. Cookta developed for us. So you'll see the trees that will be included in the plantings are oaks, red maples, river birch, tulip trees, pine trees, pitch pine. Let's see, in the next slide, where's the next one? Up here. So these are the types of trees that we will include in the new plan. And with the new types of trees, they are more sustainable in the harsh conditions down on the water and have a more likelihood of survival. So I like to turn it over to Bob as the professional to talk about the types of trees.
Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, thank you, Bob.
Okay. As some of you know, I was the tree warden for the town for about 14 years, and Fran Brady, who's also on the Zoom with us, he asked me to join a small group. It's about 4 volunteers that started this project, Mad for Trees, and it's a 5-year program. And we were looking at areas to start. And so we looked at Salt Meadow Park, And, there haven't been any trees really planted there since probably 2010. And it doesn't look like the town itself was going to put any money into planting of the trees. So the trees that we're providing will not cost the town anything. We've raised the funds for paying for the trees. The supplier is Summerhill Nursery, and we've worked with them to see what they had available for this spring. Some of the trees are not available for a few years because he actually has to grow them. Some of the oaks, he normally doesn't grow oaks. So what the plan shows is really the trees that are available this spring that we would have available from Summerhill to be able to plant with volunteers. We've been in contact with some of the Boy Scout troops and won't involve any machinery. It's all planned for an April 23rd. That's the day after Earth Day to do the planting. And they won't be the size that the original plan called for because Summerhill doesn't have large bald and burlap. So it is a change in the plan, but mostly just in the sizes of the plants. We are going to have some 15-gallon size and 7-gallon container, but some of them will be in 3-gallon size, and that will allow volunteers, 1 or 2 people to actually plant a tree instead of having to hire a contractor and work with digging large holes. So and in my experience, I've been planting trees at Hammonasset State Park for the last 4 years in small containers, 2 and 3-gallon size, and they've done very well without a lot of watering. We've had 2 or 3 years, we had some really dry years, and the soils there are very sandy and gravelly. So we're also looking into they're not really diapers, but they're a way of slow releasing water to the root system. So we're investigating the cost of including that. So our goal at this point, this is the first big project that Mad for Trees is doing in the spring. We've already done 4 trees, 1 at American Legion, 1 at the Library Annex building, and 1 at Bauer Park. And so this would be a great first project for good visibility and to kick off our program. It is a 5-year program, and we're going to try and cap it off with the 200th tree planted during the bicentennial year of 2026. And then beyond that, maybe a larger mission of planting another 2,000 trees in the town of Madison. We're working with the Madison Foundation, so there's really not going to be any cost to the town. We've had support from the Board of Selectmen. We've already had a thumbs up from the Salt Meadow Park Advisory Committee. So you're the 3rd step. And after, if we have a favorable nod from your group, then we go to Planning and Zoning for their approval. But because it is a town property and it went through site plan originally approval, this is a modification, so that requires your approval as well.
Well, thank you, Bob. I think it's a wonderful idea to plant trees there because it's a little sort of bleak right now without them. I just have one question, then I'm sure John Cunningham has questions. They're all different trees, and what about the heights when they're grown? Are they going to be different heights? Are they going to create a canopy? What are they going to look like when they're, a few years in?
If Austin would go back to the pictures of the trees, they are mostly shade trees. So they're going to shade the cars in the parking lots and also provide some shade for the dog park. Once that gets approved, there's going to be some fencing in the dog park, and along the fences, we're going to try and provide some shade trees for that facility as well. So this is not maybe a 1-year program. It might be a 2nd year project or maybe a fall project for to include the dog park as well.
And are you planting anything in the ground at the base of the trees?
You mean as far as soil amendment?
Yes, or ground cover of any kind? Do you have any plans to do that?
Well, there is another group that Kelly Brady, Fran's wife, the Pollinator Pathway group, they planted at the library annex. They did ground cover there along with tree number one of the flowering dogwoods. So that might be an adjunct to the program. Our particular project is just to plant the trees, but
Yes.
there is definitely an opportunity to plant ground covers. At this point, there's only just little blue stem grass, which gets mowed seasonally.
Okay. All right, thank you. John Cunningham, do you have questions?
No, no, the varieties all look fine. Bob, all I would probably say is that respect the mature size of the tree when planting. Like,
Yep.
even though they're in small containers, don't have the tendency to put a red maple 10 feet away from an oak. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
it's
Oh,
hard
yeah.
to look at your sketch to figure out what it is, but when you design, you really have to have a 25-year period of what the tree is going to do with the existing elements back around it. So just make sure you take that into consideration. Okay.
Yep. Well, if you look at the original plan from 2010 or whatever year, they had 50 oak trees
Yeah.
proposed along
Whoa.
with about 45 pitch pines, which, that was pretty dense, more dense
Yep.
than what we're proposing.
Mhm.
And I didn't really understand the Cape Cod style of the plan itself. I mean, we're not on Cape Cod. But I can understand the design element of having pitch pines close together. They don't grow very big and they're
Mhm.
kind of scraggly. But oaks, yes, there's quite a few oaks. So we will consider, the sizes of the mature. We want ultimately to be able to shade the parking lot and the dog park. So
I think John had a very good point, because that was sort of concerning me, how this many trees would look when they're fully grown. And so I think just going a little bit further with the oaks are beautiful trees, and to give them enough space to grow all around rather than being, overgrown with the trees right next to them, I think is a very good consideration.
right. Well,
Uh,
if there's too many in this particular area, there are certain areas in the rest of the park that, we've got 42 trees on order. They could be spread to other parts of the park as well.
That's a good thought.
John, what is the spread of an oak, a mature oak?
Well, I mean, if it's Alba, which is white oak, it could be 70 feet wide.
Right,
Okay. If it's red oak, it could be 50 feet wide, 45 feet wide.
right.
I think this, and one thing I will say, if you're in the same variety could be a little closer together than different varieties. I'm not a big fan of when you have, let's say, red maple and river birch growing together. That is not a good look. It's not good for the trees. The same variety could be planted a little bit closer together. And you really have to be patient. The trees are not going in real large. And I just mentioned this to Bob. There might be a want, like a thought to, well, let's put them a little closer together because they're not large. That's what you don't want to do. Give the things the correct spacing, okay? And let them develop over time. It's going to be a number of years before they're actually shading anything, but let's give it enough time to grow to at least towards its maturity. Okay.
So you're
The
saying
soils,
the oaks,
sorry.
the oaks when planted will have to be planted with, 20 feet on either side of it, open, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
And no one likes to take a tree down, but after a 20-year period or 25-year period, a lot of times you might look at something and say, okay, we planted 5 trees 25 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever. We could remove 2 because the other 3 trees are going to develop a little bit better. That will be an ongoing thing at Salt Meadow Park.
Yeah, I would agree, John. I think if the original plan was planted with the number of trees,
Yeah.
you'd probably be removing
That's-
half the trees that were in that plan.
Yeah.
You know, the soils are very poor here. It's very sandy, gravelly material, so it's not very fertile. So the trees are going to take a long time to get to that 70 feet. None of us will ever see that height, you know. But I had just a sidebar when I was in my 20s, I planted a white oak on a town green, and it's now about 50 feet tall in 45 years. So, you know,
Gosh.
it's going to take some time for any shade. I mean, they have no shade out there now at all, you know, so.
Does anybody else, any comments about this proposal? Yes, Fred.
John, are these deep-rooted plants?
They're varying different root systems. Red maple has a very shallow rooted system. Oak trees usually have more of a tap rooted system. All the varieties listed would take this form of environment down there. It's a gravelly, sandy area. Bob, I would really make sure that the trees get enough adequate water the first 2 summers. I wouldn't worry about it fall and spring, but the month of July and August, probably the beginning or the end of June, I would make sure that part of the Mad for Trees Association got down there and manually watered some of the new stuff, at least once a week.
That's one of the things that we're trying to work out with Beach and Rec and the town.
Yep.
You know, they have tacitly said they will support our project. How they actually help us, you know, will they fill up 50-gallon barrels of water, and we hand water these trees once a week or twice a week during the summer? You know, we'll see how it goes. But that's in the discussion stage at this point.
It just made that. Now, one last question, Bob. The Salt Meadow has irrigation for all the fields, correct?
Yes, but it's just for the fields. We asked if that was accessible for, you know, if we wanted to do some soaker hose type of thing, and it's not engineered for that, as far as I have heard.
But they could change their existing system to allow you to have a faucet, a hose spigot at the end of one of the systems. That way, at least you have water capability by the parking lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Austin, do you have any leads on that kind of direction at the park? I know we talked about the dry bathrooms.
Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't. We'll work something out to make sure these trees have a good survival rate and make it work.
That's good. Anybody else have a comment? John, I wonder if you could make a motion and include all of those recommendations, or the important recommendations that you made.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented, with a couple little stipulations that the on-center spacing of the trees take into account the mature size of each different variety. They're all different sizes. And that the watering of the trees is going to be very important, especially in the summer months, July and August. My company specs out the first 2 summers. The first 2 summers, by the 3rd summer, that tree should have enough root mass to grow. So those first 2 summers is going to be very important also.
We have a seconder for that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you both, Austin and Bob, for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just one more point. I think we're going to try and get the trees mulched as well. And that
Good
would
idea.
help a little bit.
Good.
That's a good idea.
Okay. The third item and the final item on our agenda is 14 Railroad Avenue. Application for site plan review and special exception permit for 16 two-bedroom dwelling units, including 13 private garages and 26 parking spaces. This is the second time that we've had this item on our agenda. Is John Matthews here to present?
Yes,
Oh, good. And John, you went through the whole project with us last month. So this is, I would imagine, just the changes that we had discussed with you. Right, go ahead.
yes. John Matthews, 817 Boston Post Road, and a town resident. I thought it was a really constructive meeting last time, and we took a lot of the comments that were made, or actually most of the comments were made, and we made revisions to the drawings. The first one was raising the roof pitch on the building that fronts on Railroad Avenue, and it looks much better now. I think we went up to a 9 and 12 pitch from it was like 7 before. That was a great suggestion. I think Matt had that suggestion. We also moved some of the windows further away from corners where we could have a shutter that wasn't crowding the corners of the building. I'm trying to think of some of the other changes that we made.
You have a drawing or a photograph of the roof line with the new pitch?
Correct. And I don't know if Maria could put that up, because I don't post Zoom things, and that's not in my expertise. But John, who has the access to the documents that we submitted to the town?
The town has all the documents, John. They have your plan, my plan, and Mike Ott's plan.
Yeah, but I don't have the ability to post them, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, Maria would, if she can.
Maria, are you able to do
Yeah,
that?
give me a sec finding him. I thought John would do it, so hold on.
Okay.
Mr. Matthews, which one are you looking for?
Well, I had one of the front elevation of building A.
Let's see if this is it.
It was our drawing A-A1.
Oh, I'm twirling for some reason. Hold on, please. Okay.
Yeah, this is the revised building with the roof pitch up to 9 and 12. And then we added shutters, and I think we changed the rear windows on the rear elevation. Before there were 4 spaced windows. But when we added the shutters, it made more sense to combine those windows into a pair of windows. And then that matched the windows in the front of the building as well. We do have a handicap walkway ramp that comes up from the side because the first floor is an ADA accessible. And on this drawing, I didn't show a railing and stuff for that, but it will be added to the drawings. But I think this looks much, much better than what it did before.
Okay, thank you.
And the color scheme is the same as the other buildings, which we submitted the samples of the vinyl siding. I don't know if anyone had a chance to look at those in the town
Yeah.
hall.
We looked at them, the three gray shades.
Correct.
Yes.
And then the other issue was just about colors. We had shown like a dark green shutters throughout the building. I mean, they could be black, but we sort of thought that the green added a little more life to the building since it was just 3 shades of gray to begin with. And then the question of what color to paint the front doors. We're proposing that the garage doors all stay white. The trim is all white. And then the front door for each building, we could paint each building a different color, or they could all be painted like a dusty rose kind of color, which would probably be my choice. But again, like your input on that. I know there was discussion about that last time. Do you do the doors in one building, one color, the next building, another color, and so forth?
Okay. Were those all of the items that you looked at since our last meeting?
I believe that's it. I mean, we
Okay.
had photoelectric plan. We had the light fixtures picked out. They were all
Yeah.
submitted as part of the application.
Well,
John-
sorry.
John Cunningham tweaked his landscape plan. We had a slight discrepancy in the walkway coming down behind building A, and that's been corrected.
Okay. Well, if you remember, John, at the end of the last meeting, we requested a site walk.
Correct.
Because we were concerned after your presentation of the size of the buildings and we wanted to see how it would look observing, on the site, how it would look from various points of view. And so we did go on a site walk, and what date was that? We went on a site walk on the 28th of January. Ron Zolshan, John Cunningham, and myself. John recused himself because he is the landscape designer for the project. And I just would like to make a couple of points that I personally observed there. And Ron, I know, would like to contribute his thoughts. I felt that the site was very tight, very small for the proposed plan. Standing on the site and looking towards the Clarity building, which is virtually on the property line, and realizing that the proposed buildings were going to be 3 stories high. And there were going to be 3 blocks of buildings, all 3 stories high. It seemed inappropriate for that area. One of the main concerns we had, even when we were looking at the plan at the last meeting, was the distances between building B and C. Those are the first 2 blocks of building. They're very, very close together. I know they're within regulations, but just visually, the sense would be to us that they were so close together, it almost created a sort of a tunnel effect. And also, there seems to be a lack of green space there, and not much consideration of the fact that there'd be a lot of cars in that space and a lot of people moving around in the space, and very little sidewalk. So the general impression was that there was too there was too much density. The plan did not give you sort of breathing room in that area of town. It didn't have the sort of village feel that you would expect within the downtown village district. And even though there's a fence around the property, I gather there would be a 6-foot fence. All of these buildings are 3 stories high, so you would certainly see them from Wall Street. You'd see them from Railroad Avenue. So my feeling was that for this proposal to work, it would need to be really pared down and more consideration given to the people there, more consideration to their needs. For instance, the people in those 2 buildings, B and C, would have to walk out of their building right onto the roadway. There was nowhere for them to separate from cars coming out of garages, cars coming up from the parking lots. It didn't seem people friendly. So those were my impressions. And I felt it was a very good thing that we did the site walk, because we got a much stronger sense of what this would look like. Ron, can you?
Well,
give your impressions?
well, you've summarized what my thoughts exactly as well. We really sort of didn't discuss this together, but other than what we noticed on the sidewalk, and I agree. Just from a visual point of view, again, it is indeed within regulation. There's no arguing with that. But from a visual point of view, I think that it is massed very, very densely, and I think it sort of seems like an uncomfortable. Once you're in the structure, I suppose it's perfectly fine. But once you're outside or going about your business, whether it's driving or walking or carrying groceries or whatever it is, it just seems, as Liz points out, not terribly people friendly, and I think that is a visual, that's a sensual, a sensory kind of aspect to this project, which I don't think quite is up to the standard of what we'd like to see, I think, or what everybody would like to see in Madison. I think it's just too dense, as Liz points out.
Matt, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I felt when looking at the plan that it was, extremely tight between those 2 buildings, and there, I think it appeared it was going to feel like just paved from sort of door to door across each other, more or less. But I was unable to attend the site walk, so I wasn't able to do that. But
the distance from a building, what number is the bill? I don't have the plan in front of me.
I think it was B and C, I think.
Yeah, but the other one, the one that faces Clarity, there's quite a lot of distance between that building and that fence. And, it doesn't actually back up. The buildings are not on the Clarity side. They're on the opposite side. So there's plenty of space there. So that didn't seem like an issue. It seemed large enough for there, but it is those 2 other blocks of buildings that just, as Liz points out, it gives it this alleyway feel, paved alleyway, with not much room to maneuver or to even enjoy a green space.
Right. Fred, I know you weren't on the site walk, but if you've looked at the plans and have any thoughts, I'd be happy to hear them.
Well, my opinion has already been well expressed. I could not join you for the walk, but I went and looked at the property, and frankly, I could not believe that those buildings will going into a piece of property that small.
Right. Anybody else have any further comments? so it seems that our committee generally feels that this proposal is too dense and it doesn't really fit within this part of the town. And I think for it to work in that space, it needs to be pared down. It needs to have more of a village feel, and it needs to have more consideration for the people who are living in or potentially going to live in these units. I know we want more places for people to live, and I think that's a very good thing. But this is too much for the spot, and I think we honestly cannot recommend this to planning and zoning in its current state and current design. Does anyone else have anything more to add to that?
John?
If you're finished, I'd like to make some comments.
Certainly.
Well,
ahead.
first of all, this is a very urban site. It's a very tight site. I agree. We are losing sight of the fact that these three buildings are more than 150 feet from any street. And I think you've overstated the visible presence of the buildings. I mean, the Clarity building next to us is enormous. It's enormous, okay? We've created a little village here. It's for people who want to live downtown. Nobody's going to force you to live there. And I think that the two buildings, C and B, is going to have a lot of interaction across the driveway, because we have balconies on the front of each one of those buildings. And it's going to be a fun place to live. It's not for everyone. Nobody's going to force anyone to live here. They're going to live there by choice.
But I think you've got to offer more attractive sort of circumstances for the people. It's you know, and it's not in the middle of a city. It's in a small town, in a very small area of the town. And so I just think it needs to be pared back, John.
But it's in the commercial district. You go down the street, there's a huge building that Matt Williams designed down at 63, 64. It's 4 stories tall and it's right on the property line. All right, Matt, sorry to bring that up, but here we've got, 3 buildings. There are 3 stories. We provided people with garages, which no one else has done. If we didn't have garages, they could drop down. But we think the garages are an amenity that people really want to have.
Well, I think it's a good idea to supply garages, but I think given the small space, these buildings will loom over everybody. They're so tall. You can see standing in the property, looking up at what a 3-story building would be compared to the side of the Clarity building. I think it would be, it could be more attractive to people. I really do. And I just think we all agree it's just too dense. It's too high. The buildings are too close to each other. And we're not moving into the planning and zoning area. They are going to discuss all of this with you. It's just the look of it, the design of it, and how it or doesn't fit into the downtown village district.
So you're saying the building, you don't like the building design? Is that what you're telling me? That's one of your things you're supposed to be looking at.
Yes.
Liz, can I say something, Liz?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not sure that the height of the building is the issue for us. I mean, they're tall, but there are other buildings that set a precedent, and I don't know that is the issue. It is the density for us visually that is the issue. I think it's the core issue. If the property was a little bit bigger, for instance, that property to the west that is not part of this site, if that were, unfortunately, it's not, but if it were included, that would improve the whole density issue by a whole lot. And when we walk the site, we recognize that. Unfortunately, it's not available, or maybe somebody can talk them into selling it to this site, but right at the moment, it's not. If that were there, then the density issue would be alleviated to a great degree. I mean, we recognized that when we were there. And just from a visual point of view, I think that is our issue, not necessarily the height or the garages or anything like that. So I just wanted to add that.
Is there any way?
And the design of the buildings I don't think we have object to the design of the particular structures. The colors are good, and there's no real objection there, I don't think. It's just dense.
Yeah, you need.
We have a limited size site.
I understand.
Our charge was to make it the best return to invest in something downtown like this.
Right.
This
Well,
is not a cheap project.
That's always the problem.
It takes a certain amount of infrastructure to make it worthwhile.
Exactly. That's exactly right. But then
So
that's a part of the problem.
You can always
John.
put
It's
it back
part
to
of it.
Henry Cooney's septic system business, if
Yeah.
with dirt piles, if that's what you're looking for.
I'm
Because
sorry.
that's what it was, and that's what's next door to us that we're going to be looking at.
I'm sorry. I didn't catch the first part of what you said.
I said, I'm done.
John's frustrated, and he was just being, he's frustrated, and he's being a little sarcastic, Ron. So he didn't miss much.
Oh,
So don't
I
worry
get
about
it. I mean, I understand. I
But
just didn't hear the first part.
I just want to clarify a couple of thoughts here, okay? The last meeting, I sort of applied the view that I try to apply consistently to everything, which I've always understood to be our, sort of charge and limit, is how do these things look from public way?
Yeah, but that's not.
And we've had discussion about internally on these sites, and I usually tend to back off on that because I don't necessarily feel that it's a detriment to the community if the private portions of a project are not imposing themselves on everybody. That's just sort of been my philosophy, and I don't know if that's right. Now, I got up a few minutes ago and I reached for the manual here at what it says we're supposed to do, and we've been wanting to have this discussion, I think, for a while. And what it does say is, it says, in reviewing, and certainly it's zoning's call on density, on coverage, building volume, height, all those things. Those are zoning elements. All we're really supposed to do, I think, is offer our opinion about appearances. And I think it's perfectly valid to make comments about appearances internal to the site. But what it does say is, in reviewing an application, the advisory committee on community appearance shall consider how the proposal for which the application is made will harmonize with and enhance the appearance of the area in which it is situated. And I think that you could look at this project, you could look at past projects, and in many cases, you may say it was debatable how it enhanced the area. If you think about the Clarity building, very large building, that was so far back from the street, and the way it was positioned and oriented from any way you were going to view it was its narrow side as you came down Bradley Road. And I think that's why we, at the time, we were more or less comfortable with it. Now, a couple of years later, after the building was up and the leaves came off the trees, I never realized how much you'd see that building from Railroad Avenue, but it was still a good distance away, And John makes the point about the 64 Wall Street edition we did recently, which is, it's a 3.5-story building technically, but it was far enough off the street, and photographed it from up and down Wall Street, and I made the case that I didn't think it would really impact negatively in any way. So I think that that's my opinion is I think that that's what we need to base a recommendation on generally. I don't know, and maybe John can chime in on what else we can do, but
One of the things I'd like to point out, the point you just made about your building and about the Clarity building. You look at the ends of the buildings from the street, and somewhere in your text, it talks about what you see from offsite. When you look at the building D, which is closest to Bradley and Wall, as you come down Bradley Road, you're going to see the end of the building just like you see the Clarity building. You're not going to see the full facade. The same thing is true with the other two buildings. From Railroad Avenue, you're only going to see the ends of the buildings, and they are 150 feet plus back from the street. They're not right on the street.
yeah, and I would say just to bolster what you're saying, John, is I think that that's consistent with the way we've acted in the past in this area, as I just pointed out.
I think,
You know,
I agree.
We thought of this project as an interior lot, if you will,
Mhm.
because it has very little, only has 80 feet of frontage on Railroad Avenue. And so we have a two-family house on Railroad Avenue that fits in with all the other two-family houses or single-family houses. The other ones, from the view off-site, you're looking at the ends of the building, not the whole.
I don't think, just to reiterate, I don't think that we were terribly concerned, or maybe originally we were, but when we were on the site, I don't think that we were terribly concerned with how far away these buildings were from either Railroad Avenue or from Scotland, from Wall Street. I think that we were resolved that was, true enough. I think it just goes back to the density of the site itself, and the mass that it creates because the site is so small, and I think that is the core of the issue. That's all.
Is there any way you can reduce the size of these buildings so they're not 3 stories?
Not without taking the garages away.
Yeah.
And then what do you do with the cars? You got to have a
Right.
Yeah. Then, right.
Then
Well-
we'd add, 14 more parking spaces on the site,
Yeah,
which, everybody hates big parking lots.
well, that's what it amounts to. I mean, what's left over on the site is all for parking pretty much anyway. So
No, if you took one of the buildings off, you'd have a huge parking lot, and you'd have 2 buildings and a house in the front with, you'd lose 4 or 5 units.
Right.
I mean, that's really what you're telling me. That's what you're telling me. Whether you like it or not, that's what you're telling me.
We're telling you what? I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
To take away some of the buildings. That's what you're telling me, that there's too much
Oh.
mass. The only way I can take away mass is to take buildings away, or take out garages and drop the buildings down.
I think it would have more of a feel of a complex in a village if the buildings were smaller or there were fewer buildings. I think that it's the same thing. It's just very, very, it's too overpowering for the space visually. So does anyone have?
Thank you for your opinion about that.
Well, I'm sorry, but we have to give you our honest opinion, John. Does anyone else have any comments? Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think that's the end of the applications. And the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our last meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
It was based on our, mostly our Railroad Avenue meeting.
Mhm.
Has everyone read the minutes?
No.
I haven't yet. I can.
We really discussed most of the things that were in these minutes today.
Yeah.
All right. Would anyone like to second that?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Does anyone have any other comments before we adjourn? I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Is it still being recorded? Are we still being recorded?
Yes, yes, are we, is the meeting over? Did you want to have a discussion?
Well,
I-
we really,
I think it might be a good idea if we're able. I mean, we had a lot of
Yeah.
things talked about
Yeah.
tonight.
Okay, you okay with that, John? Delora? I can't hear, unmute.
On the agenda. So, you know, people who have tuned in aren't having the opportunity.
You muted yourself again, John.
John, you got to start over.
I get I'd like to start over, believe me. I get a message over my face, so I can't see that. No, I mean, I think, you know, the meeting's closed. You know, it's not a regulatory commission. I just think that anytime you want to have any kind of a discussion about anything, I think it should be transparent and open to the public. You know, if we're going to talk about anything that was discussed at this meeting, the meeting is closed, doesn't give anybody the opportunity to rebut. I don't think that's appropriate. In fact, you know, if you want to, you know, I'm gonna probably step off, and if you want to have a meeting, it's not going to be in the minutes. You know, you're welcome to, you know, just chat informally, you know, as a group. But
We lost John and we lost Ron,
Yeah, we lost Ron.
we lost Ron, we
Yeah.
lost John Cunningham,
John Cunningham.
you know.
well, the one thing I wanted to say was, you know, we should, Matt, you checked all of the details of our charge as a committee. And so I think it would be a good idea at a certain point, and I know John and Delora had mentioned this earlier, that we go over those and talk about those, and so to reaffirm, you know, exactly what our charge is.
I agree. I think I made that suggestion a couple months ago myself, or
Yeah.
maybe just with Ron, I'm
So-
not sure, but I think that would be really useful. We've all heard comments about some projects in town, mostly the one that's across from my office, that have people concerned, and, you know, I think, you know, it'd be good to do. Now, I'll let it go with this because we're not going to talk too much, but when I reread what I just read on, you know, aloud here, it's funny, I had it underlined from years ago. Must have been some contentious application. So it was easy to find. It's not very clear or specific though. You know, it's just, you know, it just isn't, you know, so so anyway, I think we probably should, I would like to put on an agenda that we have a discussion as a committee.
Yeah.
Maybe we can come to some better consensus as to what we should or shouldn't be saying.
Yeah, it's
sounds
always a
good.
good idea to review these things every now and again, and maybe we might have some recommendations for making changes. I don't know if that's possible, but certainly it's a good idea to remind ourselves exactly what our charge is.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
is John
Okay.
DeLore?
Yeah, I think, you know,
I think-
tonight's meeting, I think we were skating pretty close to the edge of what we can say and do.
Yeah.
But the town is approaching a housing problem that has been pretty much ignored. And I think we have to face the fact that we're going, in some areas of the town, we are going to lose the village feel. We've already started it in some areas. Bradley Road is absolutely necessary and economically it's economically obvious, but it doesn't look like a village. And for that matter, we started a lot earlier before we were in existence, I think, with the hearth. If you have a village aspect in the back of your mind, you would look at that collection of buildings and say, where did that come from?
I don't think there was an ACCA when the hearth was approved, was there, Fred?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
And it was like Henny Penny. There wasn't an ACCA when Henny Penny was passed.
It's probably one of the reasons why we're in existence.
I think so. Yep, I think so.
I think so too.
Well, you know, it was difficult today, really, because I don't think we've ever not passed things on, at least most positively, to planning and zoning. But
I think so. Look, as I say, we're in a predicament where the town has to provide living
housing.
And economically, it can't be done except by crowding. And we have to face that.
Yeah.
Well, especially because there's not a lot of land, is there, that's available. So
the question is, from a design perspective, is how do you achieve those densities with what kind of buildings and what configuration of units and those kinds of things. And, you know, I work for developers who love this 2 stories above a garage floor model. They say it sells fantastically. It's, you know, it's the biggest bang for your buck as a developer. But it, you know, it doesn't, it also generally is the most mundane, most project looking, quote unquote, you know, so it's tough. It's a hard thing to do well, that's for sure. So.
Right.
It goes,
right.
I think that part of our problem is that maybe planning and zoning hasn't faced this fact that we've got to have a lot more buildings that are not, do not follow the village aspect.
Well, you know what, there's a compromise. Compromise has to be made there. You can't have a real village feel because it's not economically feasible. But I think you've got to find something in between, doing something that is egregious within the confines of the village, and something that wouldn't work economically. You know, it can be done, but it's as Matt said, it's hard. It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll come back again with something feasible.
I would be reminded of the village aspect of Deep River, where a factory is now an apartment house. That doesn't have a village feel, but you know, it doesn't look wrong there.
Are you talking about the piano factory where
Yeah.
they made pianos? Yeah, they did a good job there.
It doesn't look wrong.
No, because it was an older building that they converted.
That's right.
Yeah. But we don't have many old buildings where we can do that.
And that's one of the reasons why I draw on
Well,
history so
maybe-
much with our designs, because
We
it
should
makes things,
look
in my opinion, it makes things feel more comfortable.
Maybe
if
we should
they-
be looking at buildings that look like old factories that have been redesigned.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matt, what did you say?
No, I'm sorry, Fred. I was just going to say, that's sort of always been my approach, is that if you can do a quote unquote recreated history, then it doesn't mean a replica,
Yeah,
but it means coming up with a design and a proportion and a style of building that's believable to the point that it might have been there a long time.
yeah.
That's sort of the way I've always approached it. And it's very difficult to do with that 3-story townhouse model that they brought. And like I said, that I've had to design. I've got one going for Guilford in another month or two.
Yeah.
But it's not in an area, anyway, I don't want to get too deep into this. We should talk with everybody next month. So
Yeah. And let's definitely review our charges as far as the DVD.
yeah, I
thing is-
think that's a good idea. I think
Okay.
so. All right. Well, have a good night,
On
everybody.
the agenda for next month, let me know.
And great to see you, Fred. Thank you. Thank you